Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The wedding photo still sat on Emma's nightstand, gathering dust like the promises it represented. 3 years had passed since David last touched her hand with genuine affection. 3 years since their conversations had been anything more than polite exchanges about bills and schedules. She traced her finger along the glass frame, remembering how radiant she'd looked that day, how certain she'd been that love would be enough. But what happens when love isn't enough? What happens when the person you married becomes a stranger? Sharing your bed? Emma pulled her silk robe tighter as she descended the stairs of their Victorian home. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8 times, and she knew David wouldn't be home for hours. His law firm had become his mistress, demanding more attention than his wife ever could. She'd stopped waiting up, stopped preparing dinner for 2, stopped believing that tomorrow would be different. The doorbell's sudden chime startled her from her melancholy. Through the frosted glass, she could make out a familiar silhouette, broad shoulders, hands shoved deep in jacket pockets. Her heart did something it hadn't done in months. It fluttered. "Marcus?" She opened the door to find David's best friend standing on her porch, rain-soaked and looking as lost as she felt. "What are you doing here?" "I was driving by and saw your light on. I know David's working late again." His dark eyes searched her face with a concern that made her chest tighten. "I thought you might want some company." Emma hesitated. She and Marcus had always shared an easy friendship, bonded by their mutual love for the man who seemed to have forgotten they both existed. But lately, something had shifted between them, glances that lingered too long, conversations that felt charged with unspoken words. "Come in," she said finally, stepping aside. "You're soaked." Marcus shrugged out of his leather jacket, revealing a navy sweater that hugged his athletic frame. Emma had always found him attractive in an abstract way, the way one appreciates a beautiful sunset without expecting to touch it. But now, with loneliness carving hollow spaces in her heart, that appreciation felt dangerous. "Coffee," she offered, leading him toward the kitchen. "That'd be great." He followed her, his presence filling the empty spaces of her home with a warmth she'd forgotten existed. As Emma prepared the coffee, she was acutely aware of Marcus watching her every movement. The silk of her robe seemed too thin, too revealing under his gaze. She'd grown comfortable with being invisible to David, but Marcus really saw her, and it both thrilled and terrified her. "Emma." His voice was soft, careful. "Ah, you okay? You seem lonely?" She turned to face him, surprised by her own honesty. "Lost? Like I'm disappearing a little more each day?" Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar, and sandalwood. Nothing like David's sterile aftershave. "You're not disappearing. You're still the most vibrant woman I've ever known." The words hung between them like a bridge neither dared cross. Emma's hand trembled as she reached for the coffee mugs, and Marcus caught her wrist gently. "When was the last time he told you that?" Marcus asked. "When was the last time David really looked at you?" "Please don't." Emma's voice cracked. "You're his best friend. You can't ask me things like that. And you're his wife." That doesn't seem to matter to him anymore, does it? The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. She pulled away from Marcus, wrapping her arms around herself as if she could hold the pieces together. "You should go, Emma. You should go," she repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. Marcus didn't move. Instead, he studied her with those dark eyes that had always seen too much. "What if I don't want to go? What if I've been finding excuses to drive by your house for months? What if every time David complains about working late, I think about you here alone, and it breaks something inside me. Emma's breath caught. The confession hung in the air between them, changing everything and nothing all at once. She wanted to tell him to leave, to protect them both from the precipice they were approaching. But she was so tired of being strong, so tired of pretending her marriage wasn't slowly killing her spirit. Marcus ... double quotes, she whispered, and he stepped closer. I know it's wrong, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I know I'm betraying my best friend just by being here, by feeling this way. But Emma, watching you fade away while he barely notices. I can't stand it anymore. She looked up at him then, really looked at him, and saw her own longing reflected in his eyes. When had this happened? When had David's best friend become the one person who understood her pain? I should hate you for saying this, she said softly. Do you? Emma closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. No, God help me, I don't. The coffee maker finished brewing with a soft beep, but neither of them moved. The kitchen felt charged with possibility and regret, hope and despair all tangled together like lovers' limbs. Emma. Marcus reached out, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. Look at me. She opened her eyes to find him closer than before, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark irises, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. When was the last time someone touched you like you mattered? He asked, his thumb tracing the curve of her jaw. Emma's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she leaned into his touch, starved for tenderness she'd almost forgotten existed. I can't remember, she whispered. Marcus pulled her against his chest then, and Emma melted into his embrace. He held her while she cried, his hands stroking her hair, his voice murmuring comfort against her ear. She hadn't realized how much she needed this, to be held, to be treasured, to matter to someone. I'm so lost, she confessed against his shoulder. You're not lost, Marcus said firmly. You're just with the wrong person. Emma pulled back to look at him, her heart hammering against her ribs. Don't say that. Why? Because it's true. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. Marcus glanced at it, and his expression hardened. It's David. He wants to know if I can cover for him at the Morrison dinner tomorrow. Says he's too busy to attend his own social obligations now. The mention of her husband's name hit Emma like cold water. The spell between them wavered, reality seeping back in around the edges. You see? Even when he's not here, he's here. Marcus set his phone aside without responding to the text. Emma, what if it doesn't have to be this way? What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time to stop pretending. Maybe it's time to choose happiness over obligation. Emma stared at him, her mind reeling. Was he suggesting what she thought he was suggesting? Marcus, we can't. I can't. He's your best friend, my husband, who treats you like a roommate he barely tolerates. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. Emma, when was the last time he kissed you? Really kissed you, like he meant it? The question cut deep because she couldn't remember. Their kisses had become perfunctory pacts, obligatory gestures between two people going through the motions of marriage. I see the way you light up when you laugh, Marcus continued. I see how beautiful you are when you're talking about something you're passionate about. David doesn't see any of it anymore, but I do. Emma felt herself weakening, felt the walls she'd built around her heart beginning to crumble. This is crazy. We're talking about destroying everything. What everything? Marcus asked. A marriage that's already dead. A friendship built on pretending everything's fine when it's not. Emma turned away from him, her hands gripping the kitchen counter. In the window's reflection, she could see Marcus. Behind her, could see the longing in his expression that matched her own. I used to dream about David coming home early, she said quietly. about him bringing me flowers or planning a surprise weekend away. I used to believe that if I was patient enough, loving enough, he'd remember why he married me. And now? Emma's laugh was hollow. Now I dream about leaving. About what it would feel like to be with someone who actually wants to be with me. Marcus moved behind her, his hands coming to rest on her shoulders. Through the thin silk of her robe, his touch burned like brands. Emma. She closed her eyes, leaning back against his solid chest. This was wrong on every level she could think of, but it felt more right than anything had in years. Tell me to go, Marcus whispered against her ear. Tell me to walk away and forget this conversation ever happened. Emma turned in his arms, looking up into his face. His dark hair was still damp from the rain, falling across his forehead in a way that made her want to brush it back. She'd never noticed the small scar above his left eyebrow, never seen the way his lips curved slightly downward when he was trying not to hope. I can't, she admitted. I can't tell you to go because I don't want you to. Something shifted in Marcus's expression, a decision being made in real time. Emma, if we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. I know. Your marriage is already over. I just haven't been brave enough to admit it. Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away the tears she didn't realize were still falling. Are you sure? Instead of answering, Emma rose onto her tiptoes and kissed him. The kiss was everything her kisses with David hadn't been in years, desperate, hungry, full of longing that had been suppressed too long. Marcus responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer as if he was afraid she might disappear. Emma had forgotten what it felt like to be kissed like this, to be wanted with such intensity that it made her knees weak. Marcus kissed her like she was precious, like she was the answer to prayers he'd been afraid to voice. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Emma could taste the coffee on Marcus's lips, could feel the rapid beat of his heart against her chest. Oh God, she whispered. What have we done? Marcus rested his forehead against hers, his hands still framing her face. We've stopped pretending. The sound of a car door slamming outside made them both freeze. Emma's eyes went wide with panic as headlights swept across the kitchen window. David, she breathed. Marcus stepped back immediately, running a hand through his hair as Emma smoothed down her robe. The front door opened, and David's voice echoed through the house. Emma? I saw Marcus's car outside. Marcus grabbed his jacket from the chair, his eyes meeting Emma's for one charged moment before David appeared in the kitchen doorway. There you are, David said, looking between them with mild curiosity. What's going on? I stopped by to see. If you wanted to grab a beer, Marcus said smoothly. Emma told me you were working late again. David's expression didn't change, but Emma noticed the way his gaze lingered on her flushed cheeks, her slightly swollen lips. Did he suspect something, or was she paranoid? Rain check, David said to Marcus. I've got the Henderson case to review before tomorrow. Of course. Marcus headed toward the door, pausing to squeeze David's shoulder in what looked like a friendly gesture but felt like goodbye. Take care of yourself, man. Always do. Marcus's eyes found Emma's one last time before he left. In that brief glance, she saw everything: regret, desire, the promise that this wasn't over. After the front door closed, David disappeared into his study without another word to his wife. Emma stood alone in the kitchen, her lips still tingling from Marcus's kiss. Her world fundamentally altered. She touched her mouth, remembering the way Marcus had kissed her like she was something precious, something worth fighting for. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive. But as she climbed the stairs to their bedroom, Emma knew that one kiss had changed everything. There would be no going back to the way things were, no pretending that her marriage was anything more than a beautiful corpse. She caught her reflection in the hallway mirror and stopped. Her cheeks were still flushed, her eyes bright with something that had been missing for too long. She looked like a woman who'd been kissed by someone who loved her. Emma touched the glass, studying this version of herself. The woman Marcus saw, the woman she'd forgotten she could be. Tomorrow there would be consequences. Tomorrow she would have to decide whether to confess or to bury this secret deep. Tomorrow she would have to choose between the life she'd built and the love she'd found in the most impossible place. But tonight, for just a few more hours, she would hold on to the memory of Marcus's kiss and remember what it felt like to be wanted. In the distance, thunder rumbled, promising another storm. Emma pulled the curtains closed and prepared for whatever dawn would bring, knowing that one kiss had unraveled everything: her marriage, her certainties, her carefully constructed life. And for the first time in years, she wasn't sure she wanted to put the pieces back together. The question that would haunt her dreams was simple. What do you do when the wrong person feels like the right choice? Some kisses change everything. Some kisses are worth destroying a world for. Emma was about to find out which kind she'd just experienced.